Disclaimer. I am a law student, and the legal information provided is not legal advice. For that, please hire an attorney. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into our next prompt. So, if you've been on the internets, and I imagine that most of you are, alright? Brianna Greyjoy? Oh, shit. Fuck me. Anyway, so if you are on the internet, and I'm sure that most of you probably are aware of this, this clip has been going around a lot, right? Like, a lot to say the least, right? And before we get too far into it, I just want to watch it and give people an idea of what all the controversy is about.
Now we have a simple question. Do you want your grandchildren to survive? I think the people you're talking to say, yes, I want my grandchildren to survive.
So many people's grandchildren are already not surviving.
Yes,
That's the issue.
You want to ensure that they'll live underwater or have a chance to survive.
So many people aren't thinking about living underwater because they're incarcerated or they're unhomed.
Then as an activist, your goal is to get them to think about it, because that is what is at stake.
So the context that they were talking about is whether or not you should vote for Joe Biden. That's it. And Noam Chomsky made the argument that, yeah, you should, because global warming is a thing. Brianna responds, but there are people who are already concerned for other reasons, and people are disenfranchised, and, there are other reasons that we shouldn't. And then Chomsky replies, well, you got to make them invested. That's your job as an activist, so that we don't die from global warming. Amazing. So yeah. Oh hey, and our boyo is in stream chat. So hey, I think this is a really good segue to bring Zan into the call. Yo, Zan. Zan, you're definitely muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, shit, hold up. I gotta adjust my voice and video. I don't know why every time. All right, try talking now.
What's up?
Awesome. Doing great. How about you?
I just woke up, so my voice sounds very crappy, but hopefully that won't be a problem.
Yeah, no, I get it. You're completely fine on my end. So yeah, I don't know if you're watching the stream right now. We just went over the amazing Brianna Greyjoy clip. So I know that you were involved in some tweets. So like, what was your involvement like after this was unfolding? Because I saw there was like a lot of drama that you got into with some people on Twitter.
Oh yeah, Bernie or Busters are probably some of the dumbest people on lefty Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I ended up quote tweeting it and talking about how it's ridiculous to have this massive issue with just doing the smallest thing you can possibly do to influence political change in your country, which is vote.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to take this weird like, oh, I'm not going to do it because they're both the same, or oh, certain people will suffer the same amount they do now under Biden as they do Trump, so why should I vote? None of these arguments are valid whatsoever, and I pointed that out on Twitter, but Bernie or Bust Twitter is very angry, and they, most of them are grifters, I have to guess, because they can't make a single argument for their position. They just seem to shill really hard for the large subsect of people on the left who are still really, really mad that Bernie didn't get the nomination, which I am too, but like, Jesus, it's not that hard to be like, oh yeah, even Bernie is saying, vote for Biden, you know? Sorry, it just woke up.
Oh, you're fine.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah. And I mean, like, especially with Brianna, like, I think that she's kind of unique to talk about here, right? Because what we have is someone, I mean, like, my impression, well, actually, what's your impression of her generally? Just broad strokes, what are your impressions of her?
So, you know how it's really hard to argue against Black conservatives or trans conservatives or what have you, because they tend to use their identity as a shield to a certain degree, and so will their fans.
Mhm.
Like anytime I cover Blair White, I get a bunch of her fans saying, "You're transphobic. How can a trans person be transphobic?" Or if I cover like a Black conservative figure, they'll be like, "You're the real racist because you are telling a Black woman what to do." This is essentially the Bernie or bust version of that. Most Bernie or busters are are generally like well-off white edgelord leftists, and I'm a white well-off to a degree edgelord leftist.
Sure.
But they sort of take it to the next step, you know, like the fan generally they're fans of Chapo or Come Town, or they go on our stupid poll, things like that. But holy shit. Because Brianna Joy Gray is a Black woman, she often uses her identity a lot, and so do her fans, as a crutch in this debate, where if somebody says, you need to vote for Joe Biden, things are very, very bad under Trump. The least we can do is vote for Biden, and then when Biden is in power and we don't have a fascist running things, we can make substantial change through direct action, protesting, and other means outside of electoralism and outside of general political engagement. And they respond, what right do you, a white man, have to tell a Black woman what is best? A woman of color at that. It's like, okay, like most of you fuckers are all edgy lefty white boys, all right? Let's not pretend like most people of color are voting for Biden and support Biden because they recognize how big of a problem Trump is. My actual first ever engagement with Brianna Greyjoy, Theon Greyjoy here, was when she saw some statistics that said that older people of color overwhelmingly support Biden, like overwhelmingly, and she ended up deleting this tweet because it was so bad. She ended up tweeting, old Black people are not people of color. They don't represent us, or something along those lines. So the meme at the time was everyone... Yeah, she tweeted that. So the meme at the time was to quote tweet her and say, if you're old, then you ain't Black. Like the Joe Biden
Oh my
meme.
god, yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, so she basically revokes the POC privilege of anybody who is older people of color who tend to be a bit more conservative, or at the very least less radically left. That was my first ever engagement with her.
It's really interesting because, I mean, like, yeah, obviously I'm familiar with, like, the Black conservative version of this, right? Where it's like, oh, you have a white boy or a white whoever, basically saying, like, speaking over Black people on Black matters, when literally then they will turn around and argue directly against their own interests or the interests of the group that they belong to categorically. I mean, like, that's the problem with, like, Black conservatives. That's the problem with Blair White, as we talked about a little bit earlier. But it's interesting because now you have sort of the same problem, but with different politics, right? It's people, like, making arguments against the interests of not only their own group, but, like, many other groups, effectively on the basis of, and like defending themselves from criticism on the basis of, oh, well, you don't belong to the in group, so you have no authority to be able to talk about this, even if what you otherwise say is objectively correct, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very hypocritical too, because Brianna Greyjoy and Virgil Texas, who I assume we'll be talking about a little bit, due to the fact that he was in the call and part of that podcast with her. They are known for being like anti-idpol, anti-lib leftists, but just like conservative pundits do all the time, they will shit talk idpol and intersectionality and then engage in it as a form of argumentation, as a form of like shielding from certain criticism.
It's the same thing that conservatives do. It's the same fucking thing they always do. It's like, oh, I fucking hate idpol, but you know, I can't be racist because I have a Black friend. It's the same fucking arguments, or like a same kind of iteration of those arguments, you know? It's ridiculous.
And it's very frustrating because identity politics and intersectionality are absolutely relevant to many conversations, right? Like, you know, when we're talking about what someone has to deal with, right?
Yeah, sure.
But using it as an argument against a criticism that is mostly unrelated to that identity is what I take issue with, especially when you are somebody who outright denies or renounces idpol altogether, unless you're using it.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I completely agree. I mean, like, basically, the way that I think about this a lot, right? Because, you know, like, I don't know, like, I talk about trans issues on here, and obviously, like, I have some stake in the game because am the trans, right? I'm always trying to think about it because, I mean, like, there's some degree to which it does help me be able to understand and, like, make the arguments. Like, there is some benefit to it, right? I think that the way that usually I like draw the lines is that I usually say that, like, coming from a particular group and then talking about, like, the, like, subjects related to that group can afford you, like, a degree of credibility. But I think it's, like, a matter of weight and not, like, a complete bar or admission to being able to talk about those categories, right? Like, for example, we know there are plenty of people who, I mean, like, fuck, we'll just use Blair again, right? Like, obviously there are trans people who talk about trans issues and who are just, like, completely fucking wrong. And then they'll go ahead and they'll use, like, the label of, like, oh, but I can't be wrong, or, oh, you can't be this mean to me about, like, what I say because, like, you're not trans and I am, right? And, like, obviously get into those situations, but I think that, like, it also would be reductive to say that it doesn't benefit people whatsoever. I think that it's just, like, something that can be taken into consideration, but it shouldn't be, like, singularly determinative, right? You know, like, and this is the reason why, generally speaking, like, with, like, Black or POC kind of issues, I do want to, like, generally promote people who come from those experiences because I think that they are better equipped to being able to talk about those things, but that's not singularly determinative, right? Because there are Black people who can have terrible ideas about, like, how Black people should be treated, right? Like, that could, like, you know, that's very easily something that can be seen. And likewise, there could be people who aren't Black who have better ideas than the people who are wrong on how to treat them, and also, like, people in general, right? So it's just kind of like a balancing act. But, like, yeah, with this, I mean, like, fuck, it's literally just it's just woke. It's just like the woke equivalent of the Black conservatives, except it's, oh, well, you know, Biden. I mean, like, it's the same variation of, like, the generic Bernie or bust argument. Oh, well, Biden was racist when he implemented a policy back in, what was it, the 60s? It was the crime bill
that was overwhelmingly supported by almost every single politician, left and right. It was one of the most unanimous decisions among both parties ever passed into law. Like, it was unheard of for both parties to agree so much on a bill. And there were actually some parts of that bill that were okay, but also a lot that wasn't, because, you know, it was the 60s. But yeah, it's very, very dumb. I'm very, very cautious to call somebody on the left a grifter, because I generally don't think people on the left grift, because you know, it's way more, if you wanted to be a grifter, you wouldn't be one on the left, you would go to the right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally.
But holy shit, if the closest I've ever seen to a leftist grifter would probably be Brianna. Oh, you have 500 viewers, poggers.
Oh, nice. What's up, fam?
Would probably be Brianna Joy. I don't know if you saw this, but she does a podcast with Virgil Texas called Bad Faith.
I've noticed that a little bit. So I actually don't know. Yeah, I know, right? Very, very ironic. Very, yeah, like all of the memes are there. So I actually don't know as much about Virgil Texas. So who is that?
Virgil Texas is somebody who's been known in the online leftist sphere for a very long time. He came around, you know what Chapo Trap House is, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he came into prominence because he is one of the main people on Chapo, which is an old, very long-running leftist podcast. Most people who've been leftist since before the rise of BreadTube probably became leftists because of Chapo Trap House. It's a pretty edgy podcast, talks about leftist stuff, and they used to be really, really good. I enjoyed them a lot. Little bit, you know, leaning towards class reductionist stuff, but they talk about, you know, social issues and whatnot, and they were very, very bloomer, very happy around the time when it looked like Bernie was going to take the nomination during the primaries. But after Bernie got fucked over, they went full doomer, full Bernie or bust, full anti-lib, idpol, whatever, and that's just the way that it's gone. And so recently, Virgil Texas and Brianna Greyjoy have started a podcast called Bad Faith, and to add to insult to injury, this leftist podcast is behind a paywall. You have to be a patron of theirs, and I believe the lowest patron tier is $5 a month in order to even get access to it.
Oh,
And
wow.
right now the podcast is making about $25K a month, and it just started recently, from my understanding. Like, it's not a very old podcast.
Interesting. Yeah, go on.
Brianna Joy Gray tweeted that she is unemployed. This is like a few days ago. Tweeted she's unemployed, can barely afford to pay the bills, and lives in a 500 square foot studio apartment. And I call bullshit on that, assuming that they are splitting the revenue from this podcast 2 ways. Even if they're splitting it 4 ways, she's still making a sizable income. And to give you an idea, I have made roughly about $32,000 so far this year, which is nothing compared to what she's making. And I'm able to afford a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in California.
Oh, so she's just lying. She's
gotta be lying. Unless there's like 100 people on that team, or just an insane, unnecessary amount of people on that team for that podcast, like doing stuff behind the scenes, and they're splitting the pay among that. And also she's not making money from any other avenues, which I highly, highly fucking don't believe, considering that she featured in a Gravel Institute video and is verified on Twitter, and is a well-known leftist political figure. Assuming that they were splitting the revenue from, she was only making money from that podcast, or splitting it like 6 or 8 ways, then she is full of shit. Because even if they were splitting it 4 ways, she'd be able to afford what I'm able to afford in the nicest part of Palm Springs, which is only an hour away from LA. She is lying. There's no way all she can afford is a 500 square foot studio apartment. Also, Bernie had to distance himself from her because she used to be Bernie's press secretary, but because
I mean, that's a
announcer.
Yeah, that was the reason I originally followed her, and I didn't like that was like my first exposure to her. And so when I was seeing all this, I was like, wait a second, this doesn't seem. I mean, like, I guess it makes a little bit of sense that like the Bernie campaign manager would have been like a devout Bernie or Buster in the end. I mean, like, I guess that makes like some degree of sense. But yeah, like when you have literally Bernie Sanders going out and saying, hey, vote for Biden, you dumb fucks. What are you doing? You're going to destroy our democracy. I mean, like, obviously, he didn't put it in that inflammatory of a way, but basically that message, right? When he goes out and says that, and literally his campaign manager, former campaign manager, goes out and says, actually, no, because fuck America. That seems like a good reason to distance himself. And also, I just kind of feel bad because, like, afterwards, someone sent me this. Noam Chomsky said, here, I have a quote up on screen. Noam Chomsky said, I wish I could manage. The rest of the 20s is so intensively scheduled that I couldn't add anything more, and it'll be a few months before I can think about scheduling beyond. So yeah, like, he's not going to be going back on there. And I feel like this is just kind of like, I don't know. I want to really be able to involve, like, for as much as I don't know, because, like, I'm still, I don't know, I need to read more. I need to read more theory. I mean, every time I've seen Noam Chomsky speak, like, in a clip or in an interview or whatever, it's always been, like, pretty much on the money, right? And I feel like this is a really bad example of, like, how we push away people who are probably some of, like, the most instrumental people for, like, left and progressive values, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of people calling Noam Chomsky a liberal right now. And
holy shit!
I had Bernie or Busters arguing, unironically, in my replies, saying Noam Chomsky has done nothing to bring people to the left or to radicalize people. And people were asking, like, really? No one? And they were like, yes, unironically, 0 people. And I'm like, he co-wrote Manufacturing Consent, one of the most cited, well-known modern bits of leftist theory imaginable. This is what Bernie or Buster's brains are on right now. I don't even know.
God, these people are gonna make me put my head through a wall. It really sucks because, like, I am fully bought into the idea, like, I'm fucking here to win, all right? I don't really give a fuck about, like, purity. I'm, like, to the extent that, like, it means marrying yourself to values that are gonna end up putting you as, like, the most principled corpse on the pile, like, the most principled body on the pile of corpses, right? I don't really care. Like, I care about fucking winning, right? And, like, all of this is literally, like, it sucks, you know? Because you have, like, not, like, this isn't just, like, small little, purist, like, lefty Twitter people. with like 5 or 10 followers who go around harassing people like on left Twitter. Like this is a prominent figure, you know. This is someone who like is a almost like a household name for a lot of people in like Bernie's sphere of politics, right? And just literally throwing a giant wrench into the efforts of, and I remind you, literally just putting down a vote for Biden. It's not hard. It's really not. People can pursue direct action, whatever it means. I mean, like, people will vaguely define direct action. I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of people have a different idea of what direct action means when they appeal to it. But like, it's like you can do whatever you want aside from just casting a vote. It's the simplest thing that you could do. It's the minimal amount of political engagement that everyone is entitled to here on the left. And like the idea that people are so principled that they either refuse or they do something like fucking vote third party, which is stupid as shit. And if you do that, then you are no ally of the left. The idea that there are like large people like out there like advocating for those kind of things is really saddening.
Yeah, it's really, really upsetting because it's most, for one, I feel very comfortable saying this. Most of the people that are Bernie or bust that say, no, you can't stop fascism through electoralism. You have to do it through direct action, have never once engaged in direct action in their lives.
Oh, totally.
I don't believe these people have gone to protest. Like, the amount of Bernie or busters on lefty Twitter that I've seen saying that we need to engage in direct action and protest actually went out and protest, I promise you there would be a lot more people at these protests with BLM and everything like that. These people are online Twitter leftists, okay? Now listen, I don't claim to be like, I don't go out and protest and stuff like that. That's not my thing. I prefer to do my advocacy through my channel and influencing people to be leftist. I feel like that's the best way I can do what I do. You do the same, although you also have like the law stuff. That's what a lot of bread tubers do. And that's great. And that's fine. But at the very least, you can vote. You can do it through mail. I'm doing it through mail. I'm voting for Florida.
Oh yeah. No, I have my ballot. I'm going to be turning that in probably Monday. Just because, I mean, like the post office isn't open Sunday, but yeah, no, like literally everyone can do that, right? That's like the idea.
Yeah, it's not hard. You don't even have to leave the house for it. You can mail it. And God, Brianna Joy Gray's arguments for why people shouldn't or don't care about voting is because Noam Chomsky brings up climate change being an existential threat, which it is, undoubtedly. If you are on the left, then you should at least acknowledge the overwhelming scientific consensus that man-made climate change is rapidly warming our climate, resulting in a variety of increased natural disasters, from the wildfires out here in California to the massive fucking hurricanes back down where I lived in Florida. I was a direct sufferer of that. When I was 16 years old, my home was destroyed by a hurricane. I was homeless for 4 months. I was lucky I had people that let me and my family stay with them, but most of our possessions in our home were destroyed by a fucking hurricane. I've directly been harmed by climate change. It wasn't even a hurricane; it was a tropical storm, and it was still capable of destroying my house because the water went over the seawall. The rain was really bad. The wind was really bad. Science has linked this back to climate change. These are issues that are also overwhelmingly going to affect poor communities that are typically composed of people of color. Like communities with that have lower incomes don't have as much infrastructure to hold up against the effects of climate change, whether it be fires, hurricanes, flooding, all of these things. It is people of color who are first going to be affected by climate change. And she is arguing in that clip that, oh, well, black people are already dying from police brutality, so they don't need to care about climate change. They don't need to care about that. It's like, literally, it is the overwhelming consensus that people of color, poor people all around the world, are going to be the ones most affected by climate change. It's very, 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 very obnoxious and frustrating.
Yeah, no, I get it. Now, actually, interesting pivot, because when I was doing research and when I had some people in my Discord like doing some digging about this, some people found, like, specifically, so if we're talking about like Brianna Greyjoy and like why, like some of her motivations for why she said some of this, let me ask you this. Have you heard of a group called ADOS, or the American Descendants of Slavery? Does that ring any bells for you?
No.
Okay. So this is a small it connects back to some stuff that we were talking about earlier, right? But actually, some people drew like what started driving some information towards me. All right. Now this is just what I've been able to gather, but like a while ago, Brianna Greyjoy posted a tweet, right? And it's basically like to the same flavor that we've been talking about, right? She said this. I asked a simple question. What can Black Americans do to get our voices heard? How does political capture hurt my community's material circumstances? What can we expect? When can we expect equality? And the left melted down. That you don't have an answer should bother you. At Bad Faith Pod, hashtag ADOS, right? So essentially, it's literally the same, like, oh, the left doesn't actually have any solutions to racism, even though it does, question mark? I don't know. It's just kind of like a straw man, but also kind of like this vague burning or bust. Like it's burning or bust, but also like with a very particular kind of like lens of race. And so I ended up asking a little bit more, and essentially it seems like ADOS, like as a group focuses in here. I have like a whole organization called Why the ADOS is Trash, Receipts is Trash, but I'll summarize here, right? Essentially it's kind of like an organization, a group, whatever you want to call it, that's focused on the idea that like because America has so disparagingly harmed people of color that there is literally no saving, or like there's no way to be able to through like standard or electoral means be able to like adequately kind of like repair the harm that's been done to the Black community, right? It's essentially just like a rejection of like the idea, like it's a pure rejection of the idea of like harm reduction. So like voting for Biden, it's a pure like it's essentially like everything that we've been talking about distilled down into like a movement centered around the idea that like, oh well, white leftists have failed us, so we might as well just say fuck the system, we're doing our own thing, and if you try to talk over us, well, you ain't Black, so you have nothing to say. And it seems just like very, very dangerous, you know?
Have you seen, okay, there's like all these different sections of the left, so it gets really hard to clarify. Generally, I split it into like the class reductionists, like where the parts of the left I find problematic, right? You've got the class reductionists, you know, the ones who, you know, this could be anything from Nosvils, which not really left, they're just economically left. You've got like the class reductionists who think that all of the problems with inequality, transphobia, sexism, racism, all those things can be solved if we just get rid of capitalism. You got the tankies, a lot of crossover there. You got what I call woke scolds, just generally kind of infighting a lot, and they can do both these things. They're tanky woke scolds, they're class reductionist woke scolds. There's people who are all three, even class reductionists who claim to be anti-idpol, anti-woke scold, will woke scold you. I mean, Brianna Greyjoy does it. You know, she'll 1 second denounce identity politics and whatnot, and then the next second fucking shit on you for being a white leftist and telling her how to vote and voter shaming her. But there's this small subsection of the left, I don't know if you've noticed it, that are leftists. You will never, ever see them shitting on the Republican Party. Ever.
Interesting.
You go to their account, and all of their attacks, all of their memes, all of their like posts are all attacking the Democrats. Not one post going after Trump or the Republicans. And if you ask them why, they'll say, because liberals are the ones that say Orange Man bad.
Wait, what? Hold on. I don't.
Yeah.
Hold on. Like, what's their, like, I understand, like, it's shit logic, right? But I don't even get how it's consistent, like, within their worldview. So what, it's just that, like, what, they don't think that leftists have, like, it's just that they're not good enough? It's just that what is it?
It's that shitting on Trump and the Republicans is lib shit. It's the Tulsi, yeah, it's true. Rodrigo de Silva Lozano in YouTube chat, the Jimmy Dore / Tulsi Gabbard left, exactly. Laser focusing on the Democratic Party, talking about how bad the Democrats are, everything terrible the Democrats have done, never talking about the Republican Party, and just brushing off anything off their shoulder that you bring up about the horrible borderline treason, crimes against humanity the Republican Party have committed. They say, what are you, a fucking liberal? Ha, Orange Man bad. Ha, where's your Yas Queen woke pumpkin spice lattes? Like, and they just go off on the Democrat Party all day. Don't give a fuck about the Republicans or Trump. They'll go after people that criticize them. Good
It
example
really
of
is.
this,
Or go on.
Tulsi Gabbard, Jimmy Dore. Kim Iverson is basically a Nazgul, but she's one of those. And what's his name? Not Matt Walsh. Vosh debated him a little while back. He's like a journalist.
Trying to
And
remember.
he
I don't
claims to
know
be on
all
the
of.
left.
Yeah, I don't know every single one of Vosh's debates, but I hear what you're saying.
Michael Tracy. Michael Tracy.
Oh, Michael Tracy. Yeah. Oh, shit. I do remember that. Where it's literally just like, all right, well, if you say that you're a neutral journalist, then why are you constantly shitting on the Democratic Party and you never turn that same critical eye on the Republicans? Why you happen to do that, fam? And he just kind of like shrugs and doesn't give like a really committal answer. Yeah. No. All right. I think I got like a pretty good image of like the kind of person that you're talking about, where it's like essentially they say, oh, I'm just neutral, or even like sometimes left leaning. Like I know that Tim Pool will say sometimes, but then literally every single one of their videos is either directly criticizing and usually or sometimes unfairly the Democratic Party, and then like failing to criticize the Republican Party with that same critical eye, or sometimes even just like applauding, like in the case of like Tim Pool, right? Like outright applauding the Republican Party even though he says he's a fucking liberal. Like what the hell?
Yeah, Tim Pool is like a whole other deal. He's literally just a right-wing grifter doing the centrist thing.
That's fair.
But like when it comes to everyone from like Michael Tracy to Jimmy Dore and Tulsi Gabbard, it's legitimately like this. It's basically conservatism to a certain degree. They're definitely class reductionists. I mean, like Tulsi Gabbard was like making attack helicopter jokes recently. On Twitter, the equivalent thereof, like she like retweeted a Michael Tracy's post about how he identifies as being not 40 or whatever age he turned. Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard retweeted that. So, yeah.
Oh my god, it is really interesting. Oh yeah, hey, what's up, Lonnie? Yeah, I don't know. It is very interesting, right? I mean, like, so when we're talking about, like, these different groups, right, so whether or not we're talking about people who use idpoll as a way to be able to, like, deflect away from any meaningful criticism, or people who, instead of actually criticizing, even though they might say that they're left-leaning, spend literally all of their time criticizing people on the left and failing to criticize people on the right, I think that what you have are, like, fundamentally issues where... I don't know, like, I don't love speculating in the mindsets and being like, oh, well, are you really, like, acting in good faith or not, right? Because I think that some of these people probably do genuinely believe the things that they say, right? I guess I'm always trying to figure out, like, how to reach these people, but at the same time, I feel like it's not, like, really a battle to be won. I don't know if you have any particular thoughts on this, but, like, this is something I'm always... Like, how do you reach, like, the Bernie or Busters? How do you reach the people who are so convinced that the system is broken and don't want to do anything to fix it? How do you reach the people who constantly criticize the Democratic Party but fail to criticize the Republican Party? Because to me, right now, like, it seems from my experience that these people aren't acting, like, reasonably or logically, because if they did, then they wouldn't have the views that they do, but, I do want to be able to reach these people, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on the matter?
I don't think there's much of a way to reach a lot of these people. It's like really, really complicated, and I don't think that I don't think their best interest is for the country to actually get better, for the world to get better. I think they're mostly just trying to like shill to this particular group of leftists that are really like anti-idpoll, anti-Democratic Party. I don't want to interject anything too unrelated, but I just got messaged on Twitter by Long Beach Griffey. I don't know if you know who he is.
Wait, what?
Transphobic videos. Yeah, he wants to debate.
Are you fucking serious? Are you goddamn serious? Get in there. Get it. You got it, Zan. 1000%. Holy shit. All right, when's that going to be happening?
Schedule that up. I'll have to. I don't know yet. I talked to him on Discord, and I didn't think it was actually him. Earlier, and then he said I can message you on Twitter if you want, and he just messaged me on Twitter, and it's him, 140,000 followers and everything. So yeah. Holy
shit. All right, well, hey, you know what, Zan? Go, you get it. I will 100% send my support and whatever I'm able to do. But holy shit, that's fucking great. That's probably a good place to kind of leave it off, because I got another commitment at 6, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have any, like, final... Like, I guess that, like, my final thoughts on this are like, I feel like this is going to be, like, an issue that's going to continue for at least a little while, right? Especially with, like, the ADOS and, like, similar people, or people who ascribe to that kind of mentality. Because, like, the thing is, While I think that people on the left are pretty adequately informed on how to be able to respond to like conservative pull, like oh well, how can I be racist? I have a black friend. Oh, how can I be racist? I'm black. All that good stuff, right? I feel like people get a little more hung up when it ends up being the exact same arguments, but from the left, right? Because you don't want to be accused of being racist, right? That's like ultimately the fear, right? And so like I feel like this is going to be something which doesn't go away, and I don't know. It's just good for people to understand that, like, you know, just because you ascribe to a particular, like, just because you come from a certain background, while that can certainly help, and I think it does certainly help people to be able to understand better that sort of background than other people who don't come from that background. I think that, like, it's pretty clear from at least some of the people that we've talked about, if not others, that, like, that quality is not always singularly determinative about whether or not someone is right on those issues.
Yeah, exactly. And if we're talking about where this comes from, I don't think everybody that believes this is like fake left or anything like that. I think the reason why we're seeing such a spike in this is the primaries were really, really heated. The primaries, we had Bernie, who was one of if not the most progressive like candidate to get as far as he did we've ever seen.
Sure.
And then you had a bunch of other nominees, and the Democratic Party absolutely stole it from Bernie. They did it again, like no doubt. You know, there was obviously a pretty coordinated effort to make sure Bernie didn't get any of the supporters of any of the other people who dropped out. You know, Warren, even after she'd lost her own state and it was pretty obvious she wasn't going to be getting anywhere, remain in the race long enough to make sure that none of her supporters went to Bernie. And they robbed him of it. And the DNC and all of the associated press, like MSNBC and CNN, also were really uncharitable to Bernie at every single turn. It was a really, really heated primary.
Yeah.
And this led a lot of people on the left that were supporting Bernie to relentlessly shit on the DNC, and rightfully so. Absolutely rightfully so. And then at the end of it all, we end up with a centrist, moderate conservative, essentially, in Joe Biden, still better than Trump, who's a fascist. And we have no choice but to either have Trump president for 4 more years or Biden president for potentially 8 more years or 8 years. Now, obviously, the correct decision here is to vote Biden. But after everything that happened, after we shit on the Democratic Party, and after we, hated Biden and all those other people for so long, it's really easy for all of that hatred that we dedicated to the DNC and to the Democrats to just stay. It's really hard to get over that, And I think that's where it comes from. People who just still aren't over Bernie getting fucked over, which is valid, but like still, even Bernie is saying we need to get the fascist out of office.
Yeah, no, and I do agree, right? And that's why I am like more sympathetic to this kind of an argument than like, I don't know, like the black conservative kind of argument, which I would maintain is basic, like entirely a grift kind of thing to do, right? It's just playing to a grift. Whereas like this, like it does, like it could conceivably come from like a more reasonable position that like, oh, well, we tried playing along, but we ended up getting screwed over in the process, right? Like I do understand that kind of position, right? The reason why I suppose I come down this position, right, is because like ultimately right now, like, yeah, we ended up getting screwed over. I don't know. We have to get into some like Bernie or bust kind of arguments, right? Ultimately, like when we are determining whether or not, because down the line, we want to get someone like Bernie or better into office, right? Like that's the goal. And like more people like him into other kinds of offices, right? But the thing is, like that will be like immensely easier when we have the same kind of conditions, like originally what brought Bernie to like national prominence when Obama was in office, and someone who is like more sympathetic to more left-leaning ideas. And who is simultaneously like not what a lot of people in the country are looking for, or not proposing like radical enough policies to be able to like adequately resolve a lot of the issues that are currently plaguing a lot of America, right? But like it's infinitely easier to be able to promote people like Bernie and similar kind of politicians under those kinds of offices, under those kind of administrations, as opposed to like an unironic actual fascist, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are 100% right. And I love you for being able to recognize this. The problem is tepid neoliberalism doesn't get us anywhere, okay? The most it gets us are a few tiny tiny changes and reforms that definitely make things better, but not in the overwhelming way that we're looking to see. I mean, under Obama, a lot of good stuff happened. We got the Iran nuclear deal. Well, this is the Supreme Court, but we got federally legalized gay marriage, which, by the way, Trump's administration is going after right now. They're trying to destroy that. A lot of good shit was done under Obama, but most people's problems weren't solved. And for a long time, what this did would be we elected a Republican. Well, we didn't. They got power through gerrymandering and the Electoral College and what have you, but and voter suppression. But we would elect a Republican. Republicans didn't fix our problems, so we'd elect a Democrat. Think, okay, maybe this time it'll be better. Very few problems fixed, so we think, okay, maybe Republicans will do what we want. Doesn't happen, and so the pendulum would swing for a really long time. But now we're getting into a and I'd say the internet plays a decent part in it. We're getting into a new age of populism. People are leaning towards populism as a solution to their problems. Now, right populism is getting pretty popular. Nazism, blame all of our problems on immigrants, blame it all on the destruction of Western civilization through degeneracy, yada, yada, yada. That's getting pretty popular. But also, leftist populism is getting really big. That's Bernie Sanders. That's socialism or more radical left ideas. And we saw the biggest burst in leftist populism under Obama, when people who are principally progressive realized that neoliberalism isn't going to fix their problems. That's why Bernie got so popular. Under Trump, all that happens is reactionaries get more radicalized, more empowered by their president. We see constant fucking right-wing terrorist attacks. When was the last month you can remember where there wasn't at least one white nationalist terrorist attack, okay? That kind of shit didn't happen as much under Obama because they didn't have the strength of the president endorsing them or making excuses for them constantly on a daily basis. If we want to see another candidate like Bernie Sanders get even bigger, I think 8 more years of Joe Biden or a more progressive, liberal candidate in power is the best way to do it. Because then at the very least, we don't have, federal agents blackbagging BLM protesters.
Yeah, and I would say that is definitely something that we do not want, among other things. Also, I don't know, it reminds me of just I don't know, I'm still despairing a little bit that literally the new Supreme Court, the tentatively new Supreme Court justice, selectively forgot when asked what all of the freedoms protected by the First Amendment, that she forgot the freedom to be able to peaceably assemble and protest. Doesn't exactly spell a lot of hope for the future as far as protesting goes, and the Republicans Party handling of it. But yeah, I feel like when we want to be able to achieve the kind of changes that are more radical that we are looking for, that we want to have a administration that is at least going to allow that to happen and allow us to be able to voice our opinions without literally being abducted or harassed or beaten or killed by police, I would say that would be a much preferable kind of political system to exist in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to imagine how most leftists can't get their brains around this, but I think it's literally just poisoning from how contentious and how heated the primary was. That's why it's so cancerous that we had so many. If it was Biden versus Bernie from the beginning, Bernie would have gotten the nomination. But because it was split among how many people? There was Delaney. There was if we're going back to the beginning, there was Delaney. There was Warren, Yang, Klobuchar, Biden, Bernie, Bloomberg. God, that's already, we're at 7.
Yeah.
There was another one. He dropped out pretty early on. At least 8. I can remember 8 at the top of my head that got fairly that were still in it when things were still pretty heated. And during the debates, there was, I believe, 6, maybe I think there was 6. Tulsi, yeah, so that's 9. It was Buttigieg, that's 10. Yeah, it was split among so many people that there was no way Bernie could make it. But if it was even a 4-way race in the beginning or a 2-way race in the beginning, Bernie would have fucking took that shit home and absolutely could beat Trump. But
yeah,
he would have
totally.
taken that shit home in an instant. The election would have been decided from the minute it started.
Oh, 100%, right? And I mean, like, for me, it was especially just because, like not only
Yeah,
were there a
Baylor
lot
and
of...
Cory Booker, 12. God damn. It
Oh
was
yeah,
so
there are
scary.
so many of them, right? But especially because like the vast majority of them were more like kind of establishment Democrats, right? Some of them were more progressive than others, but by and large, most of them fell into the same kind of voter base that appealed to Biden. And then as far as like people that appealed to like the same kind of voter base that Bernie had, it was really just Warren for a while, right? And Warren, who mind you, was like pretty popular for a while there. And I would say that like even like for me, I think that like she is probably one of the main determining factors for whether or not Bernie would have won. Kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, like how they specifically played especially like the primaries and how she didn't drop out until it was too late for her supporters to go over and like vote for Bernie and to support him.
That was intentional.
Oh yeah, no, it was 100% intentional. I don't think that anyone could look at that and think that it wasn't, right? It was perfectly played. Like all of the stars aligned perfectly to make sure that Biden got the nomination over Bernie, right? Which
Yeah,
was nowhere near the original. Yeah.
She waited until the day after it became too late for, like, it became mathematically impossible for Bernie to win, to drop out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's frustrating. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like that we probably got through everything. I got to get onto another segment, but thank you for coming on. Do you want to... Hey, I'm at 13K people now, so this actually matters a little bit. You want to shout yourself out?
I remember the days when I was having you on to shout yourself out.
Yeah.
You're growing up. You're getting there in the world. You're friends with Contra, the queen of BreadTube. You got 13,000 subs. I'm proud of you, Riley.
Thank you, Zan. I really appreciate it. And obviously, I deeply appreciate your community. It's always wonderful when I come in the chat. Everyone treats me wonderfully. Lonnie is wonderful. Y'all are great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do my best to build a good community. But yeah, for any that are interested, my name is Xanderhal. I have a YouTube channel that I have like I'm about to hit 48,100 subs. I'm so fucking excited to hit 50K. I'm doing a big media share you laugh you lose stream. I'm gonna do it while high. I'm gonna take a big old slonk of gang weed, try not to throw up, and try not to laugh at the videos that chat sends me. So that's gonna be exciting.
Damn.
And yeah, I mostly do political stuff. You know, the leftist videos, very similar to Riley's format, very similar to Vosh's format if you know of him. You know, going back even further, a little bit of resemblance to like Destiny's format. So if that's what you're into, if you like Riley, then you'll probably like me. So yeah, if you're interested, come check me out.
Chill. All right. Hey, Zan, thanks for coming on last minute. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking to you.
No problem. I had a fun time. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.